Good morning, dear colleagues. It is a pleasure to welcome you at this conference. So we arrived from Moscow, and we would like to tell you today about our practices and experience in implementing the BIM in our projects. For those of you who don't know anything about us, we are one of the major Moscow developers, one of the top 10 developers in Moscow. In the recent 5 years, we launched over 800,000 square meters of housing, including commercial real estate. One of our flagship projects is the Scandinavia area, housing area. In this project, we implement the BIM technology. As a developer company, we want to remain competitive in the market, and we also want to have better results and to provide better products to our customers, and we want to exceed their expectations. So the key elements that influence the cost of the projects that we implement are the focuses on the marketing and technical assignments. The cost of the projects depends on a number of factors that we integrate at the launch. When we build a project, we understand that we want to have some final result, and the BIM modeling system helps us to have a comprehensive understanding of the issue of the final objective. We've outlined several goals of implementing our pilots, our project. So these tasks include the typization of project solutions, because we build different housing objects, sites, and we develop a lot of project documentation scenarios. So we want also to be focused on the time frame. So to avoid errors and mistakes using standard approaches, we need to understand the risks. The previous speakers spoke about digitization of products. The reason is that 2D design is an outdated approach. There are some critical opinions on BIM modeling, but it's obvious that the future of construction and the future of building developer projects lies with BIM and information modeling. When we implemented the technology, we outlined and highlighted a number of customers, a number of internal customers inside the company that would like to use this data. They would use the data produced by the model. These are our financial services that are responsible for building the cost model, and they also manage with the financial flows. Our procurement department, for them it is important to have high quality documentation at an initial stage, to have better procurement and involve high quality contractors. Using modern technologies, they will be able to avoid risks and mistakes, and it helps you stay within the project and avoid additional iterations. When you come up closer to the tender, you will understand that the quantities are real, And this is one of the key values of the approach to modeling. Not many market players use such a technology. For us, it is quite important how our international colleagues use the schedule tracking tools to understand the real situation on site. This exchange of experience will tell us to have a local understanding and have a precise understanding of what is happening on the site, and it will help us understand the entire process. In our company, we are building many housing facilities at the same time, and we need to track the schedule of each of the buildings, because it finally will affect the provision of final products to customers, of the flats to customers. Our image as a company could suffer if we don't have a full understanding of the process and if we don't track the process in its entirety. So with every day we want to become better. We want to provide a better solution, a better product. Technical inspection and author inspection are also the internal customers of these data. They can track the quality of construction and also stick to the initial project. All these business processes that we change with the BIM modeling application. So for the current situation, all these business processes do not always correspond to the real objective that we have. In other words, when we provide services to our customers, giving them the information that they really need, by doing this, we reduce the time of implementing our projects by means of optimizing internal processes. One of the key business processes that is currently in place is the design process. They are the generators, they are the sources of our BIM model, and at the moment they have a high workload. But we want to move forward. We want to develop our projects and replicate them as we move forward. So our final objective is to replicate the projects that we have already implemented, to save the cost of further projects that are based on the previous projects. That is an optimization that is critical for developers building residential housing, major projects, and when they have new challenges with every new project. We are introducing the Scandinavia project to all of you, and it is one of the most important projects of our company at the moment. So the volume of the resources, the volume of housing covers over 300 hectares, which means that it is a major project for the current reality. We are doing the comprehensive development of our territories, of our estates, and we are involved in developing housing, residential and commercial sites, as well as engineering facilities. When we define a pilot project, it was obvious that the most critical project is the housing residential development, because this is the main source of cash that we have at the moment, and any developer actually earns the most profit from housing, from residential housing. So we are currently developing our pilot project, and we want to integrate the knowledge that we accumulated in the process of preparing this project. We want to apply this knowledge at all the stages within the company. We also want to implement respective KPIs that could help us track the entire process and understand the successful practice, the successful track record. So we want to have a dedicated KPI for our BIM, and we will reach that when we will manage to reduce the cost of project implementation by up to 30%. So after that, we'll be able to say that we've switched to the BIM technology entirely. So we want to use the BIM for about 90% of our sites, of our projects. And when we reach this, we will be able to say that the BIM modeling is a necessary tool, is an important tool in our business. Speaking about KPIs, we can have some fixed KPIs and tasks, but the key thing is teamwork. We have internal design institutions, and internally we built a designer team and organized a design department, a BIM department. We used a classical scheme for that without any new ideas. We recruited specialists, a BIM manager, and some BIM engineers that use their knowledge and skills to build BIM models. So in this department, they were responsible for the implementation of this technology in our company. The key point here is that our department includes only 4 people, and such a department is capable of handling up to 100,000, 120,000 square meters of housing. So it can replace, it can be supported by also an external institution. Also importantly, at the launch of the project, the first thing was that we created a structured implementation schedule. And this is an important point because when you do something from scratch, it is not always possible to understand where the end is. When you have a structured schedule, you can understand all the stages and understand all the gaps and be able to respond and react quickly.
After we make the schedule, we, as always, analyzed the scope of standards that are publicly available, the scope standard, and then we adapted it for the needs of our company. The main thing in the standard for us was the description of the data that we use in our model. So the things that we need to get out of the model: families, level of details. So these areas were given a particular focus. Data exchange regulation is a special area of interest. It is a part of information modeling standard, but it's better to have it as a separate document to formalize the interaction between all the stakeholders. It helps you to avoid the chaos and uncertainties when you do the joint design, especially at the initial stage, because later on people will already know where to go and how to interact with other experts, both internal and external. So our main case here is training. Since we have a dedicated design office, and they have lots of things to do. So our designers are very busy people. So the main task for us was to train our people, our designers, to work more effectively and to spend less time doing certain operations. We put some thought into it, and we decided to optimize the training material based on our design specificities, design requirements. So before, it wasn't so clear for them. Now they were trained using the real case examples of the projects that they had to work on. So the training process was sped up, and feedback was quite good. Our designers were quite happy with such kind of training. And the designers who used to work in AutoCAD, they finished their project. They would finish a project in AutoCAD and start next project already in Revit. So they already know how this software works and what the benefits are. There are some designers who are AutoCAD adepts. They say that Revit is rubbish and we don't want to do this, but after the training we managed to convince many of them that it's really a valuable tool, and the main value for the company is that it serves as an information resource, and you can use it later on. So the training structure itself is classic, it's standard. There are general courses and specialized courses for architects, for constructors, engineers. So this is how we proceeded. We also designed a visualization course for joint design. So at the stage when we started testing the joint work with other designers, we identified several issues here. So we decided to make this special training course to avoid any future problems with upscaling of BIM technologies within the company. So one of the most basic courses was analysis works course. That was for our typical users. These are the people who usually get the aggregated data, but at the same time they need some additional information or additional materials, but they are not designers themselves. So this basic course is very helpful for them. So it's this software that we train them is like a viewer. It's Navisworks. It's very handy for them to get some additional information. As for the software, when we decided to do the implementation of the software, and we actually planned to do this quite a long time ago, but our first implementation experience wasn't a very positive one, because we didn't fully realize what we want to hear from the client. So the main message here is people who implement these solutions today, you should understand, my message to you is that you should understand your requirements very clearly, and the rest comes more or less automatically. And getting back to software, and implementation. Having analyzed the market and our, well, compatriots on the market, we realized that many companies use Autodesk products, like our international rivals as well. They also use Autodesk quite extensively. We are trying to involve the designers now to design our projects for us as real estate developers, because our design office cannot cover all our needs, so we outsource some external designers for project documentation development. And it's very hard, almost impossible, to find external designers who would be able to make an information model for us according to our requirements, according to our LOD families, our template exporting, etc. The whole 9 yards. So I call upon all the designers to unify your software tools and to be client-oriented and be more developer-oriented. That would help to bring our industry forth in the future. That is it. Thank you. Thank you, Ilya. Just don't go away. We have some time for a couple of questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and the mic will come to you. So, first question. You said that you have your own design office, right? How many people do you have? Around 80. And what's the percentage? So they do everything, right? Yes. What's the percentage of the designers who use Revit? What's the percent? Or how many people? Fully. We are at the stage of when we implement a pilot project, so we are not upscaling this initiative for the entire design office. So it's isolated within one working group to improve the methods of interaction, and in parallel, at the same time, we also look into the ways of interaction with external designers, and then we are going to upscale all the initiatives within the company. So by 2020, probably, we expect all our designers to move to Revit. And another question. So you have set out the information model requirements, but the designer market is not, well, it's not reciprocating. So your requirements for the information model are not met externally, right? Yes. But what did you find a way out? Because you need to design anyhow. Are you reducing your requirements? No. We are just supporting the designers, provide information support. If they don't understand something, we have our own BIM department, so they can clarify something, clarify what we need from them. And should the need arise, we are ready to hand over our family to them, the product family. What's about cost estimation? How do you estimate the cost of a real estate facility in BIM? Because it's very important for you as a real estate developer. Yes, indeed. Our cost structure consists of several factors. So our house consists of different factors, roughly speaking. If we're talking about residential area, depending on facades, thickness of the walls, etc., type of the walls. So we estimate each factor as a technical solution. So in its entirety, it has certain volumes, and the volumes have references to the unit prices. So the unit price can be the price for just for something, for a unit, but we can use both external and internal price classifiers to identify these unit prices. So when we identify some block consisting of several units, we get the price for this block or part. And the advantage of BIM is when we used in spreadsheets, when we worked in spreadsheets before, we calculated the parts of this spreadsheet and we got the sum total. And when we change something, when we copy and paste it from another project, we get the price discrepancy, the tolerance. And if we're talking about 30,000 square meters, the discrepancy is not quite big. But if we're talking about the million square meters, then the discrepancy is quite large. And BIM allows us to, if we change something in one unit, we will see the impact on the entire system. If we add parking for cars, we see the price for the parking itself, but we also see the change in the wall, for instance, wall costs, because the walls are getting more expensive because of the load-bearing weight. So this is the approach that we use for everything, and that's the main advantage why we use BIM, because it's important for us to process this data, to accumulate them and to analyze them in order to use them for our own commercial purposes later. Thank you. Again, you can find your speakers later on during the plenary session here, and you can ask your questions. Let's have one more question and move on. Before BIM, your people worked in AutoCAD, right? Or did they use other products, MagicCAD or ArchiCAD? Were any comments from the people when you... So, did anyone tell you that our current solution is more effective and we shouldn't move on? Of course. We started with AutoCAD. Yes, we've been with AutoCAD forever. And the competences, the internal engineering competences, well, we didn't always have it. Sometimes we used to outsource the engineering capabilities. So all the calculations and specifications for engineering works were outsourced. So we were focusing on the volumes, on the equipment list. So we could carry out a tender, estimate the price for a house, for a building, and then we forgot about the project that we implemented and moved to another project. As for the people who have their own preferences, yes, there are some people, such people indeed, and the larger our design office is, the more opinions you're gonna have. So you have to make an executive solution, executive decision, or you have to compare what option you need more, what product you need more. If the pros outweigh the cons, then you make the decision. Or you use adapters, but you lose some data in between, in the transfer. This is why I mentioned the designers. Even if we use AFC format, we cannot get all the data volume that we need. And the loss of this data devalues the project. It's actually, the project doesn't have any value anymore if you do not have this data. It's just a nice picture and nothing else behind it. Thank you. Well, thank you.